Yes, good evening to everyone. I am pleased to be here again with Khin. This event was delayed due to some personal circumstances, but now luckily Ohmar is again in good health and can be with us to continue this series of updates on the situation in Myanmar. For those who follow us, you already know that we have started this series in collaboration between SEA-Junction, a public venue in Bangkok, focusing on Southeast Asia, and AJAR, again, a regional organization based in Indonesia, which is focusing on transitional justice for the region. And we both are concerned about the situation in Myanmar. So after the coup, we started this series, initially bi-weekly updates, which have now become a monthly update. And although the interest is not as high now, 2 years later, as it was at the beginning of the coup, we believe that it's even more important to do this kind of events, to keep the focus internationally on about what is happening both inside Myanmar as well at the level of ASEAN and internationally. I think Ohmar doesn't need really an introduction anymore since she is often in the public eye, but she's a leading peace and rights activist and leaders from Myanmar. So please, Ohmar, go ahead with the update.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Leah and SEAJunction for having me back. And thanks to all of you for joining. Due to my health conditions, I actually had to postpone this for the last month. So basically my kind of like update to share with you tonight, as well as to discuss with you some of the current developments, both regionally in ASEAN and internationally. So I will try to just like really take the key points, I guess, then we can also get into the discussion. But before that, I just want to also share with you at this point, there is an ASEAN Civil Society Conference / ASEAN People's Forum, which is an annual gathering of the civil society organizations, networks, grassroots organizations, people's community-based organizations in ASEAN from 10 ASEAN countries. Usually, whichever the country, a member state is taking chair, there is also civil society also hold the conference where the issues concerning the people of ASEAN across the region are brought in, where people show solidarity to one another. The issues are discussed, recommendations are developed to propose to the ASEAN leaders. So right now, as we gather this evening, there is also this, Cambodia is the chair for the ASEAN this year, 2022. So in Phnom Penh, 3-day conference is actually taking place. It's a hybrid because since the COVID, that was online last year also, but this year is hybrid. But regardless, of course, the civil society and activists, human rights defenders from Myanmar are unable to go and join in person especially for the security concern, really. So basically, many are actually joining online, and we have ASEAN, we call Myanmar National Organizing Committee, and Myanmar National Organizing Committee is basically to be a part of that annual forum, annual platform, to bring the voice of the Myanmar civil society, bring the issues that Myanmar people are facing, the challenges facing. So basically, different Myanmar activists are joining and speaking on different platforms. And just today, the civil society colleagues, the Friends in Solidarity, they gave three minutes solidarity message for the people of Myanmar, which I actually would like to display now. Then I will actually start my sharing, updating with you. if that's okay. Bom, you have it, right? Thank you.
I do not have it. Do you have anywhere to access it? Or is it on some websites where?
Oh, sorry, I sent the link to Leah. Do you have it?
Oh, okay. I will.
Yeah, while Leah is trying to get it, those of you who have not had a chance to follow on, please do look on the Facebook page of the ACSE ABF 2022 for also other workshops and issues that the ASEAN people are coming together to raise to the leaders of the region. So. Do you have it?
Maybe you could, yes, I send it, but in the meantime, maybe you can just proceed while
Okay, sure. Yeah. So in that case, maybe you can show it later. So, well, friends and colleagues, so basically, I usually give you the overall update of where things are, like kind of like monthly for now. If I may start, share with you and update you. Now we passed 21 months since this military hunters tried to take over the country. So now it's 21 months. So we're getting close. We're pretty much getting close to almost 2 years. And of course, if you follow closely, you will also notice that how the
so much for joining the solidarity activity with our Myanmar friends.
Sorry. Shall I continue? Or
do you want to share now?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining the solidarity activity with our Myanmar friends. This activity does not mean that we are against with anyone, but it is to show solidarity and to show that we are not supporting any violence and we are not provoking any violence as well. So we hope to restoring the democracy that happened in Myanmar before to happen again, and also to make sure that there should be peace and no violence happening on our friend in Myanmar. To begin with, we would like to share the song that our Myanmar friends sent from the far to us. So let's enjoy the 2 minutes video together. just heard the song, Do You Hear the People Sing? In Burmese version. A prominent revolution song was translated into Burmese and sung by a young singer called Khin of Angry Folks. He was one of the key initiators of the Spring Revolutions in February 2021. He is currently being detained in prison for over 15 months and facing several charges. We paid tribute to his activism and revolutionary spirit. We hope he will be released soon. Now, we want to ask you all to stand up and be silent for a moment in commemorations of the spirit of Myanmar people in the revolutions and honoring the fallen heroes of all ages and generations.
The solidarity message for the people of Myanmar. We, the Southeast Asian people from Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos PDR, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Timor-Leste, and Vietnam, are united and stand in solidarity with the people of Myanmar from all diverse ethnic and religious communities, the women, children, and elderly, with all the Rohingya people, LGBTQIA people, pro-democracy activists, farmers, workers, and defenders who stand tall against the military junta.
We, the people, condemn the Myanmar military who massacred and killed over 2,400 people and tortured, raped, disappeared, arrested, and prosecuted tens of thousands more.
We condemn the junta constant airstrikes, ground attacks, and torturing of villages in its terror campaign against the entire nation.
You may have the guns and the uniform, but you are an illegitimate power in the eyes of the Southeast Asian people.
The Myanmar military junta consists of criminals guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity.
We, the people, condemn the ASEAN failure to stop the atrocity in Myanmar, to prevent the loss of innocent lives, and to prevent further horrendous crimes.
The 5-point consensus has yet to make any meaningful progress in ceasing escalating violence and alleviating the suffering of people through humanitarian aid.
It is ASEAN's obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. All their actions must be in respect and in unity with the people of Myanmar.
We, the people, call on to ASEAN leaders to move beyond the 5-point consensus, to stop inviting the junta representatives to all ASEAN meetings, including the AICHR and the ACWC. International community must stop deflecting responsibility to ASEAN.
We call on the international community to impose targeted sanctions and a global arms embargo against Myanmar, to cut financial and weapons flow to the military junta, and to bring perpetrators to justice through available avenues, including the cases at the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court and universal jurisdiction cases. We call on the private sector in Southeast Asia to cut business ties with the junta, including Thailand's PTT company.
We, the Southeast Asian people, recognize the legitimate power of people in Myanmar in the hands of the National Unity Government NUG.
The international community must mirror our voices and those of the Myanmar people, recognize and support the NUG, and work with Myanmar.
Now follow me. We, the Southeast Asian people, stand in solidarity with the people of Myanmar until the military defeated,
until the democracy is established, until all lives are respected with dignity.
People united in solidarity for Myanmar. The revolution must prevail.
Can we also get the message that our Myanmar friends sent from the far up, please?
Bomb.
សូមអូនអ្នកកាន់សារជួយលើកសារឡើង
Thank you, SEA-Junction for reposting. I mean, showing, agreeing for me to show to the friends. Yeah, it's really before I actually share, it's just like while I was watching from online, of course, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole new young generation of activists, human rights defenders, from from the ASEAN, from across the region, like taking up this issue, and as you just heard, it really touched me also, because I remember in the past 20 years time when our generation of activists were also campaigning, those of us from Burma, Myanmar, who were not in the country, were not able to be in Myanmar. And yet these friends from across ASEAN region, from Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, even from Timor-Leste. And it's just like, really like, it's important that the region continue to keep pushing, the people of the ASEAN keep pushing for further democratization of the region, further advancing of our our people's rights communities, from the grassroots, like really pushing for the justice, and also like to really basically like to really challenge the systems that are so corrupt and so autocratic and militarized, such as like extreme case like our country, Myanmar, right? So it's really like it's like coming from the old generation activist myself, it was like really encouraging for me to see that this social justice, that the people's movement, the flag has actually been, the torch being passed on to the young generation, that now like just for me is like, it's really amazing to see that energy, that energy as they have come together today. With that, let me also start sharing with you some of the key developments, both positive and negative, I would say. I'll start with a negative, but I'm saying the negative, we should also look into the the positive side of where things are. So I will start with the negative side, of course. The military junta is really losing their battle on the ground. They've been losing more and more of the battle on the ground, and of course they become to be more fierce, more violent, more barbaric, with, you know, in their taking actions in response to this more solidifying, more strengthened movement of the people on the ground. And I think that's also the very reason, you know, like why such military might will actually use the airstrikes, no? Like why would they use the air power to actually, you know, like bomb the people on the ground who don't have even you know, like an equivalent of the military warfare to counter their airstrikes, right? So the very reason I want to start from the positive side of the people's movement is because they are losing the ground. They are losing to the people's movement. But then, of course, because they keep doing the best that they know, which is this barbaric extreme violence. So we're seeing more and more airstrikes, and airstrikes in which they will, you know, like just come and bomb, you know, in the middle of the daylight to attack the school children's, you know, like the children's school, such as like in Sagai in September, for example, or just last month in October on the October 23rd, when they actually bombed the music concert in Khin state, when about 1,000 people are celebrating. They were celebrating the founding of the Khin Revolutionary Khin Independence Organization. So you see like such kind of air attacks. That's where, of course, the people on the ground are most vulnerable. So like when they attack when they bomb the children's school in September, that killed 11 children at least. Whereas when they bombed the music concert on October 23rd in Khin state, that killed about more than 80 people. But also not only that, they actually bombed and killed when the injured people actually, you know, when they were brought to get treatment from the hospitals in the town that were blocked by the junta troops. So basically, you know, like it's a very clear intention of wanting to like kill the people, whether they are children in the school or, you know, musicians you know, singing at the music concert to celebrate their own political aspiration of equality. So I think these are the things that we started to see more. And I you know, with a heavy heart, I will have to say that now is the end of October. In November in Myanmar, we call it open Punli Yadi in Burmese. Is called the open season. Open season means that's the rainy season stopped and dry season started. And traditionally, you know, throughout the past decades, also this is the time the Myanmar military will attack the ethnic revolutionary organizations, you know, who have their own territory control and administration and governance, and yet keep fighting for the self-determination and their self-autonomy, equality in this union. So it is not new. It is not new to the ethnic communities who have been resisting such military power oppression. But of course, now after, you know, in the last 21 months, of course, it's become more severe, right? Because the people from the urban and city areas who had to also, you know, like come in to take a sanctuary or come to actually form the resistance, you know, with the legitimate government, the national unity government, to fight this military back. So the ethnic liberated areas are far more fluid in terms of the activities, and also housing more and more people because of these military attacks in the cities and urban areas. So in the coming weeks and months, as the open season started now, unfortunately, we are anticipating more of these airstrikes. And that's the very reason that we've been advocating intensively and extensively for the international community to really impose the global arms embargo, but also to impose the aerial aviation fuel, the jet fuel transfer sale to Myanmar, and also to impose sanctions on the companies that are selling weapons to the Myanmar military. Of course, those of you who also know the international norms, such airstrikes in the Civil War, it is an absolute breach of the Geneva Geneva Convention, where we can actually, the ideal situation, ideal solution will be for the Security Council to adopt a resolution. But of course, Russia is the one selling these air power. And being Russia being one of the veto member in the Security Council, how can we ever expect the Security Council to act? But then there are, in case of Ukraine, there are other ways. There are other alternative solutions or the alternative initiatives the international community, including those Security Council members, have taken. I think at this point, when we compare, it's very clear that some of these big Western democracies, including in our region, like Japan and Australia, continue to fail to the people of Myanmar. Knowingly, there is this military completely, taking advantage of the air power to kill the civilians, and yet you still don't see, for example, Australian government imposing any targeted sanctions on this military junta. It's very disheartening for us to see, because the Foreign Minister Penny Wong, before she came in, before she became the foreign minister, yeah. So the diaspora activist communities in Australia, Myanmar civil society already been reaching out to her, asking her to do more, right? Also, when she got elected and take the foreign minister position, we had so much hope, and we keep asking and asking whether the capital or their missions in New York and Geneva. And the only answer that we get is, oh, it's being discussed. Well, since June, July, so it's already quite long already, and we don't see any moves at this point, and that's very frustrating. So I'm giving you back and forth of the, this frustrating situation, how the international communities being ineffective, and their inaction really speaks how this military become far more emboldened and brave enough to do what they're doing now against the people, because in their eyes, nobody's going to take the action against them. So that's where the airstrikes and how that we keep calling for, different actions that we're not able to get yet. Let me bring you to another issue, which is the internal displacement and humanitarian aid situation. Because of these, especially because of these area strikes, but also these artillery shellings, and especially the Sakai region in upper Myanmar in dry zone are under most severe attacks. Yeah, but also these are the areas where on the ground, it's a liberated areas already with the self-administration. Where the schools are being run, the healthcares are being run, people are, being with, their normal life. And yet, of course, when the airstrikes, when the fighter jets and the area strikes come, they have to actually run and hide, right? So I think that's where at the moment, but because of that, especially, the airstrikes are not only in Khin and Sakai, but also Karen. The Karen area has also been receiving severe series of airstrikes. So because of that, the internally displaced population actually continue to increase. So the UN estimate is actually total 1.4 million. And in that 1.4 million, they said it's 1.1 million has been displaced since last year, since the military tried to take over since last year. But then if you really look at how the local humanitarian workers and humanitarian responders, local civil society organizations, community-based organizations who are at the forefront, at the front line to address this looming humanitarian catastrophe, they're saying two things. One is that the number from the UN is a lot less than what the number on the ground, such as, for example, in Khin, the Khin Peace Support Network came out with their report, and then they said the actual number of the internally displaced people is, if you compare their number and the UN number, it's like the UN number is 50% less than, no, it's like a double. It's like 50% less than what the actual number is. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is the same for the Sakai and Magui and also other ethnic areas as well, because traditionally, throughout the past decades of the UN agency's operations, when it comes to the armed conflict in the ethnic areas, these UN agencies and INGOs, they don't have access to those areas. They cannot have their operations. They cannot send their people to actually go into those areas because the military will not allow them. Even if they are allowed, it will be a very limited to certain areas for a certain limited time. And also with a very specific instruction of who can receive the aid and who cannot. So because of that, that's the one reason that UN data is not accurate and cannot be reliable. And at the same time, if you think from the ethnic community side, who have been struggling for their freedom, for their equality, they are not a part of the central system under the military control. So when the UN agencies have an advantage of having access to the data system under the central military control, for the ethnic communities, why will they actually give up their data and information to such agencies, knowing that this information will end up in hands of the military? That is a breach of their security on the ground. That imposes a high risk for them on the ground. So why would they actually share such information, knowing that these agencies have to report to the military? Well, that's from the past, and the same at this moment as well. So with the looming humanitarian crisis, and as you know, the ASEAN 5-point consensus, one of the 5 points is to deal with this humanitarian crisis. For the ASEAN Humanitarian Coordination Center, or known as the AHA Center, AHA, the AHA Center to actually deal with this situation, right? But the reality is AHA Center has in the AHA Center's governing board, the military hunters representatives are there. And AHA Center is actually to deal with the natural disaster. They are not equipped, they are not set up to deal with the man-made disaster such as in Myanmar. With that, having also the hunters representatives who actually have the total say over where the aid will go or not, and what kind of aid and where and who will receive. So with that, we have a very serious problems in the country now that the UN and international community rely on the AHA Center when it comes to the humanitarian aid, when the AHA Center is not equipped to respond. They also started to come with this UN agencies renewing their memorandum of understandings or the letter of agreements or giving the credentials to the military. Knowingly, they don't have access to those most vulnerable population impacted by the military's violence. So here we are as civil society. We've been bringing different alternative solutions to the United Nations, also to the ASEAN. The reality is the Myanmar people, the people of Myanmar since last year, since the crisis started probably by, I think if I remember correctly, maybe June, July, August, we have been addressing in our own way effectively, even though the resources are so limited compared to these big donors or the big aid. Our local communities groups, we don't have access to those big aid. And yet people help out each other and try to really find the like-minded donors who understand the ground nuances and ground reality, who also trust the local community's leadership, and who place the trust in the people of Myanmar to do this life-saving work. And because of these donors, because of the diaspora communities collecting, doing fundraising and all, and that's the very reason we've been able to do. Many of the Myanmar civil society organizations are a part of this big mission, trying to do as much as we can. And we're telling now to the UN agencies, one, don't extend the MOUs because you are giving the legitimacy to this illegal terrorist organization of the country concerned, while this terrorist group will feel more emboldened to do what they are doing, which is killing the people. So that's why we're saying, don't give them legitimacy. Don't allow them to continue to do what they are doing boldly. But unfortunately, we haven't been successful with this call. We hope that they will hear more of this, our voices, and also the alternative solutions that we are proposing to them. And at this point, this humanitarian crisis is something that we are also raising to the upcoming ASEAN chair, who is Indonesia. The ASEAN 5-point consensus was initiated by Indonesia, the Indonesia since last year. And now the Indonesia taking the chairmanship. It is actually, the burden is, that responsibility is more on the shoulder of Indonesia because Cambodia really messed up in 2022, rather than really the irony here that I want to point out is the Cambodia being the chair and also the Cambodian foreign minister being the special envoy, they are to implement the 5 points. In 1 point is to engage with all stakeholders, yeah? But Cambodia chose to only engage with the military junta, while sidelining the legitimate political actors of our country, including NUG, NUCC, the Consultative Council, as well as the ethnic revolutionary organizations. Well, now we are basically finishing the Cambodian chairmanship. What do we get out from the Cambodian chairmanship for the people of Myanmar? It's all minuses, meaning like more of these atrocities on the ground, more of the mass killings on the ground, more of the arrest and more of the execution and more sentences to Aung San Suu Kyi. And one of the elected MP just a few days ago was sentenced to 173 years in prison. He's only 52 or 53 years old, about my age. 173 years old. 173 years imprisonment. So this year, as we gather tonight, we are only a few days away from the ASEAN summit. And end of the year is going to be the Indonesia. So we're calling on the ASEAN leaders. We just sent a letter from the civil society, 505 civil society organizations, an open letter calling for them to make drastic changes with the minimum to the longer sustainable, to find a sustainable solution in the more sustainable way. And that includes, for example, we are hoping for the very minimum action from this upcoming summit, which is for the ASEAN to stop the military attending all the ASEAN meetings, from all the ministries, from all the mechanisms. That includes the Human Rights Commission, that includes the Women and Children Rights Protection Commission. That's the minimum the ASEAN summit should decide. Even if they don't care for our people's life losing on the ground, they should care for their own face. They should care for their own face if they ever think about any of the dignity that they want to see left. That's the first step that they should be doing. That's the first minimum action that they should take. And our call is a legitimate, not even out of the 5-point consensus, because basically in that 5-point consensus, if they don't engage with any, they better not engage with any, right? If they don't engage with all, they better not engage with any. Meaning, it's a logical call from us to stop these the military hunters representations in all of the ASEAN meetings. So let's see. I'm just crossing my fingers, but it's very clear to me. The ASEAN foreign ministers had a special meeting just to discuss on Myanmar case, right? Just last month in October. So they had a joint communique that they signed in August, in which they said they will decide something on Myanmar if there are no progress with the 5-point consensus. Well, it's very clear. The military junta is absolutely in non-compliance with the 5-point consensus. So now is the ASEAN, they have to do something about it because they said it, they decided, So then in last month, this special meeting by the foreign ministers, if you will read their statement in the media, they said they would continue with the 5-point consensus. Well, what that tells us is we know that Malaysia has a very clear policy in response to Myanmar crisis. The Prime Minister spoke during the UN General Assembly in New York, whereas also the Foreign Minister already spoke and in all the public and private meetings about how the Malaysia position, including what we have discussed about the minimum action like that, and including for the to deal with the humanitarian crisis, for the ASEAN to support the local humanitarian responders and civil society actors. So we know that Malaysia is very clear with their position. When it comes to a country like Indonesia, we know that Indonesia is not the same as Vietnam, where Vietnam has so much of their business at stake dealing or working in hand with this Myanmar military. So we know that, Vietnam will always block any effective action, whether in ASEAN or in the UN. They will do it. We know that. But then in that case, coming to Indonesia, who will take the chair, who initiated this 5-point consensus, will have to look into something very pragmatic, but also pragmatic in a way that actually reflects the ground reality, isn't it? So this decision from the special meeting in last month from the foreign ministers, I think it's very clear there is no common position among the 9 member organizations of 9 member states of ASEAN. That's what I read. That's how I read of their decision last month. So now I'm not going to predict anything, but we'll just have to keep raising our voice and keep calling on Indonesia when they assume the chairmanship in January to do the right things. And Foreign Minister of Indonesia, Ibu Retno, since last year, she already said that what she wants to see happen is in line or according to the will of the, what she cares for is the well-being of Myanmar people. And I think she said it very right. The well-being of Myanmar people since last year and now, she knows, I'm sure she knows, Indonesian government knows the well-being of Myanmar people have gone to even far down to the most dire situation. So now Indonesia will have to show their leadership. With that, what we have called for also on the Indonesia is learning from the Cambodia's mistakes to actually start open the channels formally to the National Unity Government and the other political stakeholders of Myanmar and start engaging formally, have formal meetings, start bringing these actors like the NUG, NUCC, and the EROs, talk about these 5-point consensus. The time has come for Indonesia and ASEAN to review these 5 points. Our call is these 5 points failed. So go beyond, move beyond those 5 points, find alternative solutions. But we can understand from their perspective that they need to look into that. In that case, our call is look into that, review it, and let's, adjust and amend and go beyond as much as necessary to save the peoples of Myanmar's life. I think that's where we are at the moment. So we hope that you will continue to tag along with us in this road, and also in your way to, in your own way, in wherever you are, to also amplify your voices. Not only the summit, ASEAN summit is coming, right? There is a APEC meeting, the G20 meeting in Indonesia, Bali, and the other ASEAN's dialogue partners, including the US, they're all coming. All these world leaders are coming. They must put Myanmar in this region, Myanmar crisis, as the top and most priority on their agenda. And they cannot be wishy-washy, coming up with the statements here and that's what they've been doing. We need them to actually take the step with the concrete actions. So that's where we are at the moment, and we're trying our best to get our messages clear and loud, and for them to see that these are all feasible solutions that we are proposing. So they have a genuine will to resolve Myanmar's crisis, which is in the most interest of ASEAN, because Myanmar spillover effects. It's Myanmar crisis is never. Myanmar crisis has never been Myanmar's internal affair, but ASEAN actually ignored it and kept it as an internal affairs all along. But now it's even far worse to this magnitude of the crisis. They must treat Myanmar as a regional and international peace and security matter. So that's where we are. With that, I'll end here. Thanks, Lydia.
Thank you very much. And yes, today we have a longer update, maybe because we have been out for a while, and also because of the statement of solidarity that was shown at the beginning of this update, and that has received some comments from the audience here and on Facebook. From the Milk Tea Alliance, they say it's so good to see such a prominent message of solidarity. Other person also say that it's heartening to see the commitment of the new generation of young people, although it is said that they must be burdened by the dysfunction of the old men leading the junta. One must wonder why ASEAN is so hesitant. Well, we know why, but I think this is just a commentary. But the important point is that there is appreciation of the message that has been given at the ASEAN People Forum. And now a few questions. We don't have time for many questions, but we have received a number. So I will just do a round. So about UN OCHA seems to have ignored the work of CSOs, such as the Karen Women Organization and other organizations. Do you think this is due to arrogance? And at the second question related to, not fully related, but still related because it's to do with ethnic diversity in Myanmar, as the NUG stated clearly that it will accept all ethnic groups as citizens with full rights, including the Rohingya. There are some more questions from the same person, but I will move to other questions to give a fair chance to other people. And there are two more questions. One, would it be possible to somehow cause dissent within the military and destroy the junta from within? This, I think, is inspired by many countries in Southeast Asia where change occurred because of division within the military, which then sided with the other side. So to say, this has happened in the Philippines as well as in Indonesia, that some military took the side of the then demonstrant and played a role in the change of government. Do you think something like this can be done? And how, if so is the case? And then again, I think it's the same question.
Sorry to interrupt, Leah. Sorry. Would you mind actually dropping me those questions so then I can be more specific?
Yes, but okay, this is the question. But can you please answer this first? I will send it. A last question. Yes. Yes, I will.
No, I don't remember the first questions after listening to the second question. I'm sorry. I had a long day today also.
Okay. So I will drop it to you. Bom, can you send it to Khin, please? And I will still read. Maybe we can start from the last one about India, the role of India, which again was a question last time.
Can I actually start with what I see from you now, which is the question on the like dissent within the army and the military?
Yes.
Sure. So basically, there are actually defectors from the military to the people's side, more than 20,000, and there are also those military, those officers, like, you know, captains and, you know, like those who actually defected to the people's side. They've been also, they've been playing a very important role, important part of the, they are important integral part of the movement. So they have, for example, they have the programs where not only them, but their wives are actually, you know, exposing of the wrongdoings within the military, how they are being oppressed within the military, but also, you know, basically inviting their other fellow military members to come out and join them and defect and join the movement. So that is happening in all three branches of the military, the Air Force, Navy, and also Army. And those who join, some of them are actually training to the People's Defense Forces, and they probably even might be even leading some of the actual you know, fightings, military advances on the ground, you know, working with the ethnic revolutionary organizations and the People's Defense Forces and the NUG. So they are also doing those things. So that's the level of, you know, like like some high officers, including captain and up, colonel, like a commander. But there are interesting things also happening. So, like, for example, like Air Force chief, I think was, well, usually, you know, like when they are demoted or they were taken action, the military will always just never, of course, they will never let the real story out, but then they will actually replace with someone else, for example. But there are more and more stories because there are still many who are within because they are under they are now put under this surveillance, severe surveillance and watch. Many of them actually who tried to defect were arrested, or their family members are held hostage. Like, you know, like when they are sent to the front line and their family members are held hostage in their base, for example. So there are a lot of these things are happening. And also the question here is how this group can be dismantled from within is only if you have the top generals are actually, you know, like splitting and taking, you know, like a different side, right? I mean, so far, even though we are seeing something very significant, never seen before, like I said, more than 20,000, including the officers and commander level, but the top generals levels are not actually divided yet. I mean, what we learn is there are many who don't agree with this military attempted coup, but also there are those who actually are more like, you know, just like Miao Lai, who are willing to do whatever it takes to cling on to power. So we don't know how these top levels are, because they watch, you know, they are put in the places to kind of like watch their backs. So basically that's how also intentionally being, you know, how the military top leadership is framed intentionally so that there can never be a coup within. Yeah. So that's the very problem.
Sorry, Khin,
So,
your video
yeah.
is not on.
So the other, oh, sorry. I actually don't, I didn't realize that. Sorry about that. So that's with the possible internal thing. I mean, we are more hopeful, but at the same time, it's like for them is if they are to actually join the people's side, the whole family needs to be able to come out. It's very challenging, you see, because the way how the military junta is doing is even to the activist, even to the National League for Democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi's party. If they don't find one activist that they want to arrest, they arrest the whole family, whether 2-year-old child, 4-year-old child, or 83-year-old grandparents. So that's where the problem, no? So as much as hopeful, I think it's still quite challenging at this point. But I can only guarantee you one thing, the morale within the military is so low. It's really, really low. First, you have to also understand that the Sagaing and Magui, the Upper Myanmar regions, these are the Buddhist Burma populations area. These are the Buddhist Burma majority areas, yeah? And that's also where the military always recruit for their military, that's where they recruit, because, you know, they are based on, the Myanmar military is based on this Buddhist Burma supremacy kind of thing, yeah? So they always recruit from the Sagaing and Magui, but now the Sagaing and Magui are under the military attacks, right? Basically, all the people are against. That includes the military's families. So that's why many of the soldiers, they were, you know, like they got completely, basically, they thought this is their military, right? But now that military is actually burning down their villages where their parents and grandparents live, where they grown up, you see? So now that's the very reason you are seeing more and more of the defections. Not only that they left with the families, many of them bring their weapons as well. But because of that, the military has no way of recruiting. Nobody is joining them anymore, basically. Nobody is joining them anymore. And they are opening the front, the fighting military front to everywhere, from the east, from the north, from the west, from the south, everywhere. Even in Naypyidaw, they don't feel secure anymore. So they had to even like declare the curfew, for example, so that, you know, they can have a better control, right? So that's where they are at the moment. And I think that's important for the international community to know is because when we talk about the Myanmar situation now, people think, oh, there's a military coup already. The military has taken over the country. The UN Secretary General's office and all of these UN agencies, that's how they actually portray the Myanmar. The military junta is as if this is the de facto government. Well, in order for the military to be a de facto government, like passed in 1900 and 2000, years 1900 and 2000, they had a full control, right? But even that time, in the ethnic areas, they didn't have control. But at least they had most of the control over the country's territory. But now they don't have it. They just don't have. So that's the very reason we are telling the international also, you have to understand this military is not even a de facto government because they don't have a territorial control over the country. Yeah. So that's one thing about the army. Now, another question that I'm looking at here is the UN OCHA seem to have ignored the work of the civil society, such as the Korean Women Organization. Do you think it is due to the arrogance? Arrogance? Oh, yeah, it's quite possible. I mean, these big agencies always think, like they are the one who can do this kind of job. Yeah, but at the end of the day, like look at COVID, something like that. Even COVID, they had to run out of our country, right? I mean, that's the reality. So what they don't, they are arrogant, but also it is for them, that's their professional job. Yeah, that's their career. For us, that's our country and our country's people's lives. And that's where the difference is. For the Korean, like an organization like Korean Women Organization, they are Korean women. They are with the Korean community. They are with the people of Myanmar, Burma. Therefore, they're not going anywhere. They are there and they will have to solve the problems for their communities. So I think that's something that these big agencies seems to be sidelining. That's a huge problem that we have. And then the reality, let's face it, as long as like the longer that they take that kind of approach, they're not a part of our country's solution as they claim to be. They are a part of the problem. Hands in hands with this military, they are a part of the problem. They need to actually, come to a conclusion and realize that they either take the side with the Myanmar people or they take side with the military as they're doing now. In fact, I had a discussion with one of the top officials in New York 2 weeks ago. It's very interesting of how someone like that, up in there who actually is in charge of many of these Myanmar programs will actually, already with that mindset that this military is a government of Myanmar. And I had to challenge him. That's what things are, yeah. So now next question. Has the NUG stated clearly that it will accept all ethnic groups as citizens with full rights, including the Rohingya? Okay. So first of all, has they stated for all the ethnic groups? I don't think I see anything like that. But then I think it's important for us to also understand and accept that NUG doesn't have the right to accept the ethnic groups because the ethnic communities, that's their ancestral land, including for the Rohingya. That's their land. They are rooted in their land in northern Arakan state. So NUG doesn't even have the right to make any such kind of like, oh, who should be the citizen and who should not. Because the reality is these people are the people of Myanmar ancestrally, and they belong there. So if the NUG don't accept, we all have to fight against. We all have to push them out. That's what we have to do. But I think NUG has come to be more and more realizing, especially we have to understand when we talk about the NUG, there are ethnic communities representations are there. Not only the National League for Democracy, who won majority, who are vastly Buddhist Burma majority. We cannot put the NUG equivalent to the NLD. It's not that. there is still a lot of this like a Buddhist Burma supreme mindset among the National League for Democracy Party members, leaders. But I think as the time passes, many of them are changing. Some of them probably continue to be as who they are. We need to push them hard. We need to put them in the you know, like in the light and have them. We have to actually make them do the right thing. And I think that is so important. Like just 2 days ago in the ASEAN Civil Society Forum, when the ASEAN Burma invited this one minister of the National Unity Government, the Commerce Minister, who actually posted racial writings against the Rohingya people back in 2017, right in the time of the genocide started, like was happening, yeah. And she was right there, posted the questions from many online, also from the moderators, where she had to actually respond, which was not satisfactory to all of us. Yeah. So what we are calling for is for the NUG to make a public apology to the Rohingya people, but also public apology as a government. I don't take it as a justice served. No, public apology individual is okay, you know, but a government has to take far more than giving the public apology. I want, yes, good if the NUG will make the public apology, we should all call for it. But I also want to see the NUG take further steps for the Rohingya community. As they pledged in their policy last year, it's more than 1 year already. Come on, you know, in the revolution, so many urgent and important things to take care of. But this, we're talking about the most persecuted community who face a genocide. During the time of the National League for Democracy NLD government led by Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, yes, the military committed it, but it was the time of in the time of the Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's government. This is a time to make make the corrections. So what we're saying is, I've been repeatedly calling both in, like, you know, in international seminars or in the Burmese seminars, also is on the NUG and the committee representing Pidang Sukhlodor to amend the racist discriminatory part of that 1982 citizenship law, but also repeal, abolish these 4 race and racial protection law, completely racist, yeah? So these are the things that they can do it immediately. So I think these are the things we have to push for.
Yeah, actually, this is very much in line with a question which was from the same person that asked about whether the NUG should indeed had accepted everyone, and there was a comment about whether racist people should be allowed to stay in their NUG jobs or dismissed. So that was, I think, is very much in line with what you have been saying.
I will take one step, Leah. I have, in fact, since last year, when I saw the list of the cabinet members, I was like, oh, whoa, no. This is absolutely not good. In fact, I actually, you know, passed my word to the people that I know within the NUG. Those who been, you know, like publicly known to be against the Rohingya community in particular, being racist and all, they should not be a part of the NUG or any of the government positions. I mean, I'm sorry, there are so many other capable people who will be willing to serve in the NUG. But because of the people like them, many of them even don't want to be a part of the NUG. Many of them don't even want to be actually supporting or, you know, like collaborating with the NUG because of these 1 or 2 individuals, basically. And I think it's important, you know, like, I mean, as a person, you know, like person to person, I have nothing personal against them, but I am very against of where they stand when it comes to Rohingya people. So as much as if they will take personal step apologizing, the NUG needs to take an action. I mean, that's also the, like any government to be transparent and accountable to the people that they serve. That is what they should be doing. Remove these two people. That's what I've been saying before too. So I'm not going to shy away from saying things.
Well, we know you are not a shy person. So I think, unfortunately, we don't have time. There were two more questions, actually. One on the ASEAN leadership. What was your judgment in terms, I suppose it's the current ASEAN leadership. What was your view of success and failures? I think you have addressed some part, and then there was one more related to the economic impacts, the economic effects of the junta rule, which are felt more and more. So economically, Myanmar is going down the drain, so to say. So that was another question. I am not sure there is. Do you want to just very quickly say something, or we leave it for the next time?
I think very quickly on ASEAN, like I have actually shared with you already in the beginning of my presentation, so I'm not going to go more detail into that. But I just want to say that I already presented this to the leaders in my meetings, like in Jakarta, in Indonesia. When we talk to the Security Council members in New York, they threw the ball to the ASEAN's court. Like they're saying, like, if ASEAN cannot, we want the ASEAN to take the action first. We're waiting for the ASEAN to take the action first. Yeah. But then when you talk to the ASEAN leaders say, oh, we're waiting for the Security Council to take the action. I'm like, excuse me, what are we talking about here? So we're telling them, look, as ASEAN, as much as ASEAN role is important, ASEAN cannot be left alone, because the crisis this magnitude is way too impossible for ASEAN to address it alone. So that's why we want the Security Council to actually also address it. It doesn't matter whether the China and Russia will be vetoed or not, but we need to see the political will of other countries' members. I mean, other member countries, other member states. So that's why, for example, now in the Security Council, there should be there's been a discussion on this resolution, for example, and then they keep talking about, oh, let's wait until the ASEAN summit, which is next week. So that's why we're telling the ASEAN, look, other peoples are also waiting. So you cannot just tell us that you are waiting for the UN to act, because you know the UN is waiting for you. So do something, right? So we do have a sudden expectation with the Indonesian chairmanship, for the very reason because Indonesia initiated this, because Indonesia is the largest democracy in Asia, I mean in ASEAN, and the largest, and also the largest democracy, whereas also the Indonesia can actually talk to the other ASEAN dialogue partners, or Indonesian dialogue partners in particular, with the democracy. So there are other solutions. We just need them to dig into that. We have shared with them already. So like I said, crossing my fingers and see what comes next week. Yeah. And then the economics, I don't get into that. And also, this is not really economics is my weakest area, so I won't be able to talk about that much. But if those of you are interested in, I will actually, I think, Leah, it would be good to invite someone like Debbie Stothard from ASEAN Burma to discuss on this particular issue. But you're right, yes, the economy is completely going to that very serious point. Also, it's very obviously because this junta, that's how they want to actually, they're doing it. They are doing it intentionally too. So I think it's important. Yes, of course, we should be talking about it, but I'll just stop here because that's not where my strength is.
Yeah, and time is over also, but indeed it's a good idea to invite again Debbie for some other updates. But so in due time, that will be the case. But for now, thank you very much for being with us, taking the time to, again, in the evening, spend your time with us rather than more pleasant things, and for sharing very interesting information. So thank you, and see you in 1 month's time again, or I will see you hopefully before that. Bye-bye. Bye-bye to everyone who has been with us. Continue to follow. Bye.